All right, so we're diving into 12 Angry Men, and, you send over this that
Yeah.
really breaks down the movie.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people are going to be really interested to hear, why this movie that's basically set in just one room
Right.
still has this, huge impact all these years later.
Well, it's really amazing how you can take a simple setting, like a jury room,
Right.
and really delve deeply into human psychology and the justice system.
Hmm.
I mean, 12 Angry Men isn't just about, a trial. It's like a little miniature version of society.
Yeah,
It shows how complex it is to make judgments about other people.
absolutely.
Hmm.
So the blog post kind of sets the stage. 1957 New York City courtroom,
Right.
12 jurors. We got this young Hispanic boy accused of murder. And it seems like it's open and shut
Mm-hmm.
until juror number 8, Henry Fonda, is the actor.
Oh, yeah.
Kind of throws a wrench in things.
Yeah.
He's not convinced that the boy is guilty.
Yeah.
And he wants to take a closer look at the evidence.
That's interesting.
And what I found really interesting about that was it's not about, like, finding a loophole or technicality.
Right.
It's about, like, a really fundamental principle in our legal system.
Yeah.
Reasonable doubt.
And that's where I think the movie gets so thought-provoking.
Yeah.
It's like, reasonable doubt isn't just this term they use in court.
Mm.
It's something we should really use in our everyday lives,
Yeah.
How many times do we make up our mind about something without having all the facts? This
Right.
movie, it's like,
Yeah.
it's telling us to slow down,
Yeah.
question what we think we know, and be really critical of the information we get.
Yeah.
Think about it. If someone's life is on the line,
Mm-hmm.
shouldn't we be absolutely sure before we judge them?
It's such a great point, and it's like the movie is asking us directly,
Yeah,
would you rush to judge or would you actually take a closer look?
exactly.
And the blog post, it highlights how juror number 8, he like methodically goes through each piece of evidence, like the eyewitness testimony, the timeline, even the murder weapon,
Oh.
which was a switchblade,
Mm-hmm.
and is presented as this like really rare, distinctive piece of evidence.
Right, and then he pulls out an identical switchblade to show that it's actually not that rare.
Right.
And it's that small detail that gets a lot of the jurors thinking,
Yeah.
wait a minute, maybe we're wrong.
Yeah.
And it makes you think about how easy it is to believe something without really questioning it.
It's a powerful reminder that even when something seems obvious,
Yeah.
it might not be the whole story. And it's not just about the evidence itself.
Right.
It's about all the stuff that each juror brings with them, their biases, their personal experiences.
Absolutely.
The blog post mentions a couple of standout characters.
Yeah.
Juror number 3, Lee J. Cobb, is the actor, and he's got all this anger that's clearly affecting how he sees things.
Yeah.
And then juror number 10, whose prejudice is really obvious.
Right. It's like each juror represents like a different part of society.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a good way to put it.
It's not just a court case.
Right.
It's about how groups work, how prejudice works,
Yeah.
and the struggle to stay objective.
Mm.
We see how our feelings and our past experiences
Yeah.
can make us think we're being rational, but we're not really.
Right. And then there's juror number 8,
Yeah.
who's like the perfect example of, having a conscience and thinking for yourself.
It takes a lot of courage to stand up to everyone like that.
Yeah, the blog post talks about how brave he is to stand up against what everyone else thinks.
It really does.
And it makes you wonder, like, how often do we just go along with the crowd,
All the time, right?
even when we have doubts?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Juror number 8's commitment to doing what's right even when he's the only one.
Yeah.
It's really powerful. He
Mhm.
shows us that speaking up, challenging things, even when it's hard, is so important.
Yeah.
And think about how that applies to us in our own lives.
Yeah.
Whether it's standing up against something unfair or just questioning a decision at work.
Yeah.
He shows us that one voice can make a difference.
And it's not just about the story and the characters.
Right.
It's how the director, Sidney Lumet,
Oh, yeah.
he uses that one setting so brilliantly.
He does.
The blog post praises his camera work.
Yeah.
The lighting, the pacing.
Yeah.
It all builds this tension.
Right.
And you're like on the edge of your seat, even though they're just in this one room.
Well, he does that by like slowly changing the camera angles and the lighting
Oh, interesting.
as the movie goes on. So at the beginning, the shots are wider,
Okay.
but as things get more tense, the camera gets closer.
Uh-huh.
So it feels like the walls are closing in.
Wow.
And then he uses these really dramatic changes in the lighting too.
Okay.
So you feel that pressure and that feeling of being trapped.
Wow.
even though they're just sitting around a table
Yeah.
talking. I mean, it's a masterclass in how to tell a story with film.
It's like you can feel the walls closing in as they're arguing.
Yeah.
And then there's that clock ticking away in the background.
Oh, yeah.
It just adds to the intensity.
Yeah,
It's really well done.
it is.
So we've talked about the doubt and how one person can make a difference.
Right.
But what about the actual performances? You know, Henry Fonda is juror number 8.
Oh, he's fantastic.
It's such an iconic role.
He is so good.
That quiet determination, the way he believes in innocent until proven guilty,
Yeah.
it's really powerful.
He really is. And he's not like some perfect hero either.
Yeah.
He has doubts. He gets frustrated, but he never gives up on making sure the deliberation is fair.
Right. He feels like a real person,
Yeah.
you know, with flaws.
He does.
It makes him more believable.
Absolutely. Fonda's performance is really subtle,
Yeah.
but it says so much.
Mm,
And then there's Lee J. Cobb as juror number 3.
right.
The blog post talks about how he's got this anger that seems to control him.
He's a fascinating character.
Yeah.
It's like you can see all his baggage weighing him down, and it's affecting everything he does. He's got all this anger bottled up,
Yeah.
and you wonder if he can even see things clearly.
Juror number 3 shows how dangerous it is to let personal trauma and anger distort our idea of justice.
Yeah.
Cobb's performance is incredible.
Mm-hmm.
He makes you understand the pain behind juror number 3's actions,
Yeah.
even though you're disgusted by his bigotry and aggression.
He's like a warning to us.
Yeah.
Telling us to be aware of our own biases.
Right.
And how they might be affecting our judgment.
Exactly. And it's not just Fonda and Cobb who are great in the movie. The
Yeah.
whole cast is amazing.
Yeah.
Every juror brings a different point of view, a different set of biases to the table.
Exactly. And it's like Lumet, the director.
Yeah.
He's putting humanity itself on trial.
Right.
You know, he's showing all our flaws, our prejudices, our hopes, our fears in this one little room.
And he does such a good job of creating that feeling of being trapped.
Yeah.
Like, as they argue more and more, you can almost feel the temperature rising in that room. The camera gets closer, you see the sweat on their faces,
Yeah.
and that clock on the wall keeps ticking.
Yeah.
It's all done so well to keep you on the edge of your seat.
It really is.
Lumet is a master at using visuals to tell a story.
Yeah.
The way he uses camera angles and lighting and sound
Mm-hmm.
to make the setting feel so tense and claustrophobic,
Yeah.
it's brilliant.
Yeah.
He doesn't need car chases or explosions.
Right.
He creates suspense just through dialogue, facial expressions,
Yeah.
and the weight of the decision these men have to make.
It's true. And you're right. It's not just about the verdict. It's
Yeah.
about the journey these jurors go on.
Exactly.
The way they're forced to face their own biases and what they believe about guilt and innocence.
The movie reminds us that justice isn't always clear-cut.
Right.
It's about navigating those gray areas.
Yeah.
Wrestling with doubt and constantly questioning what we think we know.
Mm.
It's a process, not a destination.
And 12 Angry Men shows how one brave voice can change that process. It's inspiring to see juror number 8, with his reason and compassion,
Yeah.
slowly changing the minds of the others, making them question what they thought was true.
It's a testament to the power of one person speaking truth to power,
Yeah,
challenging the way things are, and fighting for what they believe in even when it's hard.
absolutely. And speaking of impact, the blog post points out that 12 Angry Men's influence goes way beyond just entertainment. It's used in schools, legal institutions, all sorts of places.
Right.
To start conversations about justice, prejudice, critical thinking. Why do you think this film still resonates so strongly in those contexts?
I think it's because the film tackles these really complex themes
Mhm.
in a way that's both accessible and thought-provoking.
Yeah.
It doesn't preach at you.
Right.
It shows you a situation, lets the characters wrestle with these issues,
Yeah.
and invites the audience to come to their own conclusions.
Right.
It's a film that sticks with you, you know?
It does.
Long after you've seen it, it makes you ask yourself, what would I do in that situation? What kind of juror would I be?
It's like a masterclass in civic engagement,
It is.
showing how everyday people can make a difference
Yeah.
by questioning assumptions, demanding evidence, advocating for what they believe in.
Absolutely.
It encourages us to be active participants in the pursuit of justice,
Right.
not just passive bystanders.
It reminds us that we all have a role to play in creating a more just and equitable world.
That's a great point. The blog post also mentions the critical acclaim that 12 Angry Men received,
Oh, yeah.
highlighting its awards and how it consistently ranks among the greatest films ever made.
And it deserves all the praise it gets.
Yeah.
It got 3 Academy Award nominations,
Whoa.
including Best Picture and Best Director.
Mm-hmm.
And its legacy just keeps growing.
Yeah.
People praise it for its tight screenplay, its compelling characters,
Right.
and its powerful exploration of themes like justice, prejudice, and individual conscience.
It's amazing how a film with such a simple premise, a group of men deciding a verdict,
Right.
can have such a profound impact.
That's the mark of a true masterpiece.
Yeah.
It takes an ordinary situation and uses it to explore universal truths about human nature and the world we live in.
And the blog post talks about how 12 Angry Men has influenced so many other filmmakers.
Oh, yeah.
And it's still studied in film schools all over the world.
The film's influence on filmmaking is undeniable.
Yeah.
It practically invented the courtroom drama genre.
Wow.
It showed the power of dialogue-driven storytelling and the dramatic potential of a single setting.
It's incredible that a film made over 60 years ago
I know.
can still feel so relevant and fresh today.
It speaks to the timelessness of its themes.
Yeah.
Questions of justice, doubt, prejudice, individual responsibility. Those are just as relevant today as they were back then.
Right.
And that's why 12 Angry Men continues to resonate with audiences across generations.
It challenges us to think critically, examine our own biases,
Yeah.
and engage in these meaningful conversations about the world.
And those conversations are more important now than ever.
Yeah.
In a world where misinformation and polarization are everywhere.
Right.
12 Angry Men reminds us of the importance of reasoned debate, the need to consider different perspectives,
Yeah.
and the power of one voice to speak truth to power.
It encourages us to be better citizens,
It does.
to get involved in our communities,
Yeah.
and work towards a more just and equitable society.
And that's a message we should all remember.
Wow. So we've really gone deep on 12 Angry Men, haven't we?
We have.
The plot, the characters, the amazing directing, the impact it's had.
Right.
It's clear why this film is still so powerful after all these years.
And as we wrap up, I think it's good to highlight a few key takeaways that
Yeah.
make this film so compelling. First, it reminds us that justice isn't just something that happens. It's a process. A process that requires, careful deliberation,
Yeah.
a willingness to challenge what we think we know,
Right.
and the courage to disagree when we need to.
Yeah.
We see that play out so clearly in that jury room
Right.
as these 12 men struggle with the evidence and their own biases.
You're absolutely right. It's not about finding easy answers or quick solutions. It's about really taking the time
Yeah.
to understand things before we make a judgment.
Exactly. And that leads us to another key takeaway.
Okay.
The power of one person,
Right.
juror number 8, standing alone against 11 others at first.
Yeah.
He really embodies this idea.
He does.
His unwavering commitment to justice. His refusal to just go along with the crowd.
Yeah.
That's what eventually changes the other jurors' minds.
And what I find interesting is that, juror number 8,
Yeah.
he doesn't have all the answers.
Right.
He's not this perfect hero who knows everything.
No.
He has doubts.
Yeah.
He questions things. He makes mistakes.
He's human.
But he never gives up on that principle of reasonable doubt.
Right.
And that's a powerful message, I think, for all of us.
It is.
That, we don't have to be experts to stand up for what we believe in.
It's about having the courage to ask questions,
Yeah.
to challenge things, even when it's uncomfortable or scary.
Right. And it's not always about these big heroic acts. It's about those everyday moments,
Yeah.
where we choose to speak up,
Mm-hmm.
to question a decision, to support a coworker,
Right.
or just offer a different opinion.
Exactly. And speaking of challenging the status quo,
Yeah.
12 Angry Men also shows us the dangers of prejudice.
Right.
We see how our personal biases,
Yeah.
whether they're based on race or class or past experiences, can really affect how we see things
Right.
and lead to unfair outcomes.
Yeah.
Juror number 3 and juror number 10,
Yeah.
they're perfect examples of how prejudice can sneak into our decision-making,
Right.
even when we think we're being impartial.
It's a good reminder that we all have biases,
Yeah.
whether we realize it or not.
We do, and being aware of those biases and
Yeah.
confronting them is so important if we really want to create a fairer and more just society.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The film doesn't give us easy answers to the problem of prejudice,
No.
But it makes us face it
It does.
and think about how our own biases might be affecting our judgments.
And that's what makes 12 Angry Men so timeless.
Mm-hmm.
It's a film that not only entertains,
Yeah.
but it educates, makes us think,
Yeah.
and inspires us to be more informed,
Yeah.
more engaged,
Yeah.
and more compassionate.
So that wraps up our deep dive into 12 Angry Men.
It does.
This film reminds us that justice is a process,
Yeah.
that individual voices matter,
Mm-hmm.
and that we all have a responsibility to fight prejudice
Right.
and fight for what's right.
Even when it's hard, and as we close,
Yeah.
I want to leave you with one last thought.
Okay.
If you were in that jury room,
Mm-hmm.
what kind of juror would you be?
Wow.
Would you rush to judgment?
Yeah.
Or would you take a closer look?
Mhm.
Would you let your biases control you? Or would you fight for a fair and impartial verdict?
It's a great question to think about.
It is, because these principles, they go beyond the courtroom. They
Wow.
apply to every decision we make,
Yeah.
every judgment we form,
All right.
and every interaction we have with others.
Powerful words to end on. Thank you for joining us on this exploration of 12 Angry Men.
Thank you for having me.
We hope you found it as insightful